Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Brown. I am the lead trainer and curriculum designer for Renew US. I am so excited about this program because we have one of our fabulous cohort members, Sam, actually running this entire program. I will turn it over to him just in one moment. I want to say if you are interested in learning about anything we do at Renew, definitely follow this channel, share, like it, all that good stuff, and then look in the description for more information about how to get involved with Renew and everything that we're doing. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sam from our first cohort to lead you through this program. Sam, take it away.
Hi, everybody. So, as Jen mentioned, my name is Samuel Eleuterio, and I am here to tell you a little bit about meditation and mindfulness and how we can apply it to our daily lives. As you can see, we've got this little slideshow that I'll start now. First, an introduction. So, my name is Samuel Eleuterio, as we've already said, and I have been meditating for about 10 years. It started out as just something that I stumbled upon via cross-country running. And in high school, I joined the sports team just out of self-interest, wanting to stay in shape and all those great things. And on one of my first runs, I discovered the fabled runner's high that all these long distance marathon runners talk about. And it was incredible. It was just a very calm sort of presence where for the first time in a long time, my thoughts weren't racing. I was just thinking about my breathing and my presence with the road and just one step in front of the other. And I had a lifelong interest in Eastern philosophy and Buddhism and Taoism. And so I already had a small library of books that talked about meditation and consciousness as this sort of amorphous thing. And I didn't understand it until I got running. And eventually, over the years, I put two and two together, and the breathing techniques that I learned from cross-country running met the Buddhist philosophy that has changed my life so much. And now I meditate every day, and it, suffice to say, has changed my life, and I hope it can better yours as well. So our agenda today, we're going to start with a grounding exercise, followed by a waterfall activity, and then we'll get right into an introduction on meditation and mindfulness, some descriptions, definitions, and where they overlap. After that, we're going to go into breakout rooms for 5 minutes or so, and talk a little bit about our preconceived notions on the topics. Followed by a mindfulness activity. We'll go into a group discussion. We'll sort of check in, see how we're feeling with the topics. And after that, we're going to do a meditation activity. And once we've done both activities, I'll be talking about how we can apply these to our everyday life. Followed by a brief history of Buddhism, as I think it's very important that we learn where these techniques have come from, and that there's not just a how do I put this? So there's not just a sort of corporate appropriation of these techniques that do have a very, very long history. And then we'll wrap up. and we'll be on your way. All right, so let's get started. This grounding exercise is called Present Moment, Wonderful Moment. It is written by the Zen Buddhist master, Thich Nhat Hanh. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about him before we get started, because he is the author of both of our readings today. So he was a peace movement worker in his native home of Vietnam in the 60s, began to travel around the world, promoting a message of world peace and peace work, and was even nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King Jr. However, because his message was so profound, he was denied re-entry to his home country in 1966. The simplicity of his writing is very intentional. You may notice that it comes off a little maybe childish at first, but that is so that it is accessible and able to be understood to anyone who reads in whatever language they happen to be reading it. And finally, Thich Nhat Hanh is a Mahayana Buddhist, and so he holds the belief that until all are healed, none is healed. So, without further ado, we're going to ground a little bit with present moment, wonderful moment from Peace is Every Step. In our busy society, it is a great fortune to breathe consciously from time to time. We can practice conscious breathing not only while sitting in a meditation room, but also while working in the office at home, while driving our car, or sitting on a bus. Whether we are away, at any time throughout the day, there are so many exercises we can do to help us breathe consciously. Besides the simple in-out exercise, we can recite these 4 lines silently as we breathe in and out. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I calm my body. Reciting this line is like drinking a glass of cool lemonade on a hot day. You can feel the coolness permeate your body. When I breathe in and recite this line, I actually feel my breath calming my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. You know a smile can relax hundreds of muscles in your face. Wearing a smile on your face is a sign that you are master of yourself. Dwelling in the present moment. While I sit here, I don't think of anything else. I sit here and I know exactly where I am. I know this is a wonderful moment. It is a joy to sit stable and at ease and return to our breathing, our smiling, our true nature. Our appointment with life is in the present moment. If we do not have peace and joy right now, when will we have peace and joy? Tomorrow or after tomorrow? What is preventing us from being happy right now? As we follow our breathing, we can say simply, calming, smiling, present moment, wonderful moment. This exercise is not just for beginners. Many of us who have practiced meditation and conscious breathing for 40 or 50 years continue to practice in this same way because this kind of exercise is so important and so easy. And with that, I'd like you all to close your eyes and begin breathing slowly, deep, conscious breaths. Try your best to inhale through your nose for 3 seconds. Hold your breath for 3 seconds. And then exhale through your mouth for another 3 seconds. And as we breathe, remember the words. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Calming, smiling. Present moment, wonderful moment. Calming, smiling. Present moment, wonderful moment. Now that we're all nice and grounded, let's move on. We're going to go into a waterfall activity now. I'd like you all to put in the chat what the first word you think of when you hear meditation or mindfulness. And on the count of 3, I want you to enter that into the chat, and we'll all go from there. 1, 2, 3. Peace, calm, flow, silence, centering, grounding. Time consuming, that's interesting. Yes, meditation does take time, certainly. It is hard, it takes a lot of practice to get results, but you still can see results immediately, which is one of the most interesting things about meditation. Okay, great. So we're going to move on to some definitions. Now, mindfulness is concentration on the present moment, as we saw in that previous activity. We perform tasks in a mindful way, as well as it can be as simple as sitting mindfully, or eating, or walking, or breathing. It modifies everyday life. Now, this is different from meditation, which is a mental exercise that can be done with or without movement. Rhythmic breathing is often, if not always, involved. Meditations are often guided, where one person listens to another describe a mindscape, if you will. And these mental exercises teach us things about ourselves. They teach us ways to be with other people. and new ways to interact with the world. Some examples of meditation, as we said, guided mental exercises. These are your Headspace apps, your sort of ASMRs, your rain sounds. Those are all examples of guided meditation. Runner's high, that feeling of sort of serenity and quiet of mind that happens when you're either exercising for a good amount of time or running out on the roads. And prayer is another form of meditation, as it is a turning inward and concentrating and thinking on the things that we wish to see in our lives, or seeking guidance, whether it be from a higher power or an inner power. Mindfulness is yoga, traditional or otherwise, because we are asked to be aware of our breathing and to stretch and interact with our body in a purposeful way. When we take an unplugged walk is another way that we can be more mindful, because our attention is no longer being pulled in many different directions by your cell phone or what have you. And finally, journaling is a way of reflecting and writing mindfully and being aware of our day-to-day lives. Now we're going to go out into some breakout rooms. I'd like you all to talk about what your personal experiences with mindfulness and meditation might be. Talk about what it means to be more mindful, and reflect on when you would like to be more mindful in your lives. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. How was that breakout room? We feeling a little decompressed, doing well? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Let me know in the chat. We're going to move right along to our mindfulness activity. This will be another reading from Thich Nhat Hanh. This is a short piece titled A Life of Miracles. And similarly to our grounding exercise, I'd like you to close your eyes and focus on your breathing during this reading. That's one of the advantages of being the guidee, is that you don't have to read. So we'll get right into it. Oh, and this is a wonderful little pocket edition, tiny, tiny book, but with a lot of wisdom in it. So as we sit down next to a stream, we can listen to its laughter and watch its sparkling waters, noticing the pebbles glistening and the fresh green plants nearby. We may become overwhelmed with happiness. We are one with the stream's freshness, purity, and clarity. But in just an instant, we may find we've had enough. Our heart is troubled and we think of other things. We are no longer at one with the stream. It is of no use to sit in a peaceful forest if our mind is lost in the city. When we live with a child or a friend, their freshness and warmth can relax us. But if our heart is not with them, their precious presence is neglected and they no longer exist. We must be aware of them to appreciate their value, to allow them to be our happiness. If through carelessness and forgetfulness we become dissatisfied with them and begin asking too much of them or reprimanding them, we will lose them. Only after they are gone will we realize their preciousness and feel regret. But once they are gone, all our regrets are in vain. Around us, life bursts forth with miracles. a glass of water, a ray of sunshine, a leaf, a caterpillar, a flower, laughter, raindrops. If you live in awareness, it is easy to see miracles everywhere. Each human being is a multiplicity of miracles. Eyes that see thousands of colors, shapes, and forms. Ears that hear a bee flying or a thunderclap. A brain that ponders a speck of dust as easily as the entire cosmos. A heart that beats in rhythm with the heartbeat of all beings. When we are tired and feel discouraged by life's daily struggles, we may not notice these miracles, but they are always there. Have a look at the apple tree in your yard. Look at it with complete attention. It is truly a miracle if you notice it. You will take good care of it, and you too are part of its miraculousness. Even after you have cared for it for only 1 week, its leaves are already greener and shinier. It is exactly the same with the people who are around you. Under the influence of awareness, you become more attentive, understanding, and loving, and your presence not only nourishes you and makes you lovelier, it enhances them as well. Our entire society can be changed by one person's peaceful presence. Our mind creates everything. The majestic mountaintop, brilliant with snow, is you yourself when you contemplate it. Its existence depends on your awareness. When you close your eyes, as long as your mind is present, the mountain is there. Sitting in meditation, with several sense windows closed, you feel the presence of the whole universe. Why? Because the mind is there. If your eyes are closed, it is so that you can see better. The sights and sounds of the world are not your enemies. Your enemy is forgetfulness, the absence of mindfulness. Now, as we return to the present moment, opening our eyes, let's talk about that a little bit. There was a lot of writing and a lot of poetry in Han's work. And so I like to break down some of my favorite lines and highlight what some of the metaphors mean that might not land to a first-time listener. So the first line, as we sit next to a stream, it is important to know that in religious texts, these are poetic as much as they are philosophical. And so some of this language is not meant entirely literally. So the double entendre here in the first line of sitting next to a stream is a metaphor for enlightenment, as well as a shorthand way of saying that you are examining your thoughts in a meditative way, as if you were sitting next to a stream and admiring it. The stream is your mind, or even your stream of consciousness. It's a good way to think of it. There's an interesting side note here that in Hermann Hesse's book, Siddhartha, the titular character reaches enlightenment when he sits next to a stream and becomes a fisherman. The next line I'd like to bring up, it is of no use to sit in a peaceful forest if our minds are lost in the city. This is especially important in the world of political organizing. Our teams are working hard and constantly juggling things that we cannot see. And so it is very helpful for us to remember that while we may be in the forest, so to speak, other people could easily be lost doing other things. If you live in awareness, it is easy to see miracles everywhere, is one of my favorite lines from this poem, or passage, I should say. When he talks about the complexities of the human eye, it really is just, it can be dug into even more. Aside from the colors and forms that we can see, it's taken millions of years evolution to develop our eyes as they are today. Just a little thing that makes me smile. The ray of sunshine that he references, you can't really see it, but it still has traveled millions of miles through space to form this little blue rock that we have. And it's partially the foundation of all life next to water. Just a little miracle that most people will take for granted on a day-to-day basis. And perhaps the strangest line in this reading, our minds create everything. The sights and sounds of the world are not your enemy. So there's a really interesting bit of metaphysics going on here, where the Zen tradition is of the belief that there's nothing real outside of sense perception, outside of what our senses tell our mind. In our mind's eye. And in addition, if you were to literally sit on the mountaintop, but you were distracted by the cold weather or the wind or something like that, you wouldn't notice how beautiful the view is, or might not notice that there's a little snow hair off in the corner. Food for thought. So now we'll do a short check-in. In the chat, drop how you're feeling about mindfulness and meditation now, and then we'll move on to our next activity. Great, great. Less intimidated, better understanding. That's what we're going for. That's wonderful. All right. Yeah, let's move right along. Seeing excitement in the chat. So please close your eyes, focus on your breathing, and focus on my voice. Imagine you're sitting on the side of a desert road. You are comfortable under an umbrella. You've got a little electric fan in one hand, cool beverage in the other. Bead of condensation trickles down and over your finger, and life is good. So as you sit there, you see a car down the road. It gets closer and closer, and before it even passes your field of vision, you can hear its engine and the loud music and the dust cloud that it kicks up. And then it blasts past you, ruining your relaxing afternoon, but only momentarily. Your ears stop ringing a moment later. The car is gone. You are back at peace. Our thoughts, when we attempt to still our minds, can be much like that car if you allow them to be. Now, let us take a moment and try to quiet our minds of excess thoughts. Allow any thought that comes to mind pass by you like a car in the desert, a momentary distraction. If you find yourself unable to let the thoughts pass through your mind, examine them. Perhaps a fight with a spouse is weighing heavy on you. Think about what was said. Consider ways to rectify this fight, if that is what you want. Be gentle in your considerations. Have empathy, not just for your partner, but also for yourself. And as you reach that conclusion, let it go. The pressure of your anger and sadness and frustration lifting off your shoulders as you breathe out. All right. As we gently return to waking awareness, we'll open our eyes and discuss this a little bit further. How do we apply these techniques to organizing and life? First off, when we're canvassing, it can allow us to have a mindful conversation. We listen to people's concerns and reply to them in a more meaningful way. This will transform your conversations, not just in canvassing, but in your everyday relationships. Being present and peaceful helps convey that we have everyone's best interests at heart. When we speak of policies like a Green New Deal, housing for all, and Medicare for all, we know that we are operating from a place, going towards a more peaceful and equitable society. Finally, when we let go, meditation is incredibly helpful. After a long day of canvassing, not every call is going to be great. You're going to walk onto a lot of doorsteps with no reply. And letting go is a key to longevity. in in interviews, if we slow down our breathing, we will absolutely suffer from less anxiety during these conversations. Um, while it is not exactly public speaking, a one-on-one session can be very intense and provoke a lot of anxiety in individuals. So if we are aware of the symptoms of anxiety, we'll be aware to slow down our breathing and alleviate those symptoms. When we consciously reflect on questions asked, our answers will always be more thoughtful. At the end of the day, that is what a lot of employers are looking for. Thoughtful individuals that can bring a new angle to their space. In addition, when we are present in our bodies, it's a way of relieving physical exhaustion. Zoom calls can take quite a long time and they can take a lot out of us. Zoom fatigue is real. When you feel yourself starting to zone out, consciously directing your attention back to your speaker is not only a gift to them, it is a gift to yourself. And that is ultimately what meditation is a practice of conscious mental effort. Finally, in life in general, by being compassionate and showing more empathy, we will transform the world. Meditation, in its core, is about compassion and empathy, but it does start with the self. It's very important. That's why it's important that we learn to forgive ourselves. Through meditation, we can learn to more easily do this. Meditation and mindfulness leads to a calm and clear mind. Modern life is full of distractions, and there are so many companies that are vying for your attention via advertisements or content. Calming the mind, being mindful, and learning to meditate are ways for us to reclaim our precious attention. And now we're going to go into a brief history of Buddhism, as I believe that we should know a bit about the peoples in which we're learning from. All right. So we begin in the 5th century BCE in southern Nepal. A prince named Siddhartha Gatama was born. His father was given a prophecy that his son would grow to be a king if he never left the palace, and a great sage if he were to leave. Eventually, the prince left his palace, and he saw 4 things as he strolled around the city, and they all profoundly affected him. The first thing was an old and decrepit person. He was shocked because his father had kept the secrets, or rather the truth of aging from his son in his pampered life. He was trying to find out more about age when he came upon a very ill person. This was even more shocking than old age, as Siddhartha had never seen illness before. The third thing he saw was a funeral party on the side of a river. A third revelation, death, that life is finite, shook the young prince. And the last thing that he saw was a traveling monk asking for alms on the street. These sights caused the young prince to leave his pampered life forever and as prophesied, he grew to become the Buddha, the Enlightened One. He reached enlightenment when he founded the middle way, what we call Buddhism. The core teachings of Buddhism are called the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. These were lessons that Gautama Buddha learned when he reached enlightenment. The first one being, suffering exists in everyone's life. The second, attachment to desire causes suffering. The third truth, that suffering ceases when attachment to desire ceases. And the fourth is that attachment from desire can be achieved by following the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path, very simply as put by the Buddha, is right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I deeply believe that if you are here with Renew, you are already following the Eightfold Path. As the Buddha traveled, so did his teachings. After several centuries, they moved from Nepal and India into China, Myanmar, Thailand, Japan, and across Asia. To this day, there are two divisions of schools within Buddhism. The two main branches are Theravada Buddhism, which focuses on individual enlightenment and experience, as well as monastic life. This has not caught on as popularly as its sibling disciple, Mahayana Buddhism, which believes in the collective enlightenment of all beings. The two branches of Buddhism that are most practiced in the West are Zen and Tibetan Buddhism, which are both offshoots of the Mahayana tradition. Zen coming from a sort of synthesis of Japanese Shintoism with Buddhism that happened 1,000 years or more ago. I couldn't say for certain. And Tibetan Buddhism, of course, from the Tibetan plateau in China. This is the type that the Dalai Lama practices and is practiced by many. Buddhism today, in addition to being practiced throughout the world, there are an estimated 500 million Buddhists throughout Earth, the majority living in China, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Thailand. The biggest issues in the Buddhist world today involve Tibet and Myanmar, respectively. During the rise of the Communist Party in China, the state issued a mandated atheism, which caused the Buddhist monks of Tibet to flee for fear of persecution. Years later, the Chinese government would begin to reclaim and represent a state-sanctioned version of Buddhism, just very troubling to the Tibetan monks in exile, because with this co-opting of their faith, it is unlikely that they will ever be able to return to their ancestral homeland. In addition, the Chinese government has begun settling new people into the abandoned buildings of the Tibetan plateau. However, there is some hope, as the Dalai Lama still lives on in India, and the monastic life continues. Myanmar is a different story altogether, however. Myanmar is a majority Buddhist country where terrible things have been happening for several years now. The incredibly violent ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya Muslim minority is the deepest shame for people who claim to be Buddhist and practice peace and working towards the peace of others. This ethnic cleansing happened under the former president of Myanmar, and since then there's been a military coup of the government and the people continue to suffer. That is all that we have for the brief history of Buddhism. And now I'm going to move on to Q&A. I've got some book recommendations ready for you all, as well as meditation tips and everyday mindfulness advice.
Amazing. This is a perfect time to stop the video recording so we can have a Q&A. And we will put all of those book recommendations and mindfulness advice in the notes on the YouTube video that is available on our channel. A big thanks to Sam and all of the work that he put forth for this presentation. And once again, definitely join us. We will be hosting another mindfulness and meditation session. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day and take good care. Bye-bye.